Coming in at number 10, she suffers from brontophobia. Madonna reportedly has a massive phobia called brontophobia. Brontophobia is a fear of thunder and lightning. When she sees a storm coming, reportedly she closes all the blinds on windows and puts on giant headphones to drown out the sound of the thunder. At the end of the day, despite being one of the biggest pop stars the world has ever known, she's still very much human, with her own flaws and fears like the rest of us. And at number 9, she's not the best actor. Madonna has completely dominated the music industry, but sadly that doesn't always translate to the silver screen. She's been in 19 films throughout the course of her career, but not all of them were shiners. Starring in the 1996 film adaptation of the musical Evita earned the singer a Golden Globe for Best Actress in a Musical or Comedy. But on the flip side, she's also won 9 Razzies. Razzies are the infamous antithesis of the Oscars for worst performances, and she won the dubious honor of Worst Actress of the Century in 2000. Rough play if you ask me. She's also turned down some pretty famous roles, including as one of the leading girls in Showgirls. While she's likely best known for acting and singing, she's also directed 2 feature films. One was in 2007 called Filth and Wisdom, the other in 2011 called W.E. Neither of these movies received the warmest of receptions from critics or audiences, and it was pretty universally panned as far as movies go. Next up on the list is she dated John F. Kennedy Jr. While we all know of Madonna's infamous relationship over the years to people like Sean Penn, Vanilla Ice, Dennis Rodman, Lenny Kravitz, and Tupac, Madonna also dated the former president's son. Her disastrous marriage to Sean Penn is well recorded, and it's an open secret that it blew up due to accusations of infidelity, general chaos, and physical harm towards one another. Sean became known for his unpredictable outbursts and temper tantrums with a major jealous streak. He would often fly off the rails when he saw another man getting close to Madonna. That being said, following her messy divorce from Sean Penn, Madonna briefly dated John F. Kennedy Jr. for 6 months. In a memoir penned about the president's son that spends a bit of time delving into his romantic past, he's been linked to other celebrities like Darlie Hannah and Sarah Jessica Parker. But one of the least documented relationships he's been in was surprisingly with Madonna. Madonna was far from a big hit with the Kennedy family, with the pop star heavily leaning into the Marilyn Monroe imagery, can't imagine Jackie Kennedy being a big fan of that one, and the general disapproval of her religious iconography for fashion purposes. But the brief relationship absolutely did not last long, mostly because despite Madonna's recent past with Sean Penn, she actually found Kennedy to be much more frightening. Quote, whereas Sean would act out, perhaps give a photographer a body shot just to vent, somehow John's way seemed more personal. Madonna said that he would get up in her face, maybe an inch away, and scream at her at the top of his lungs when they were in a fight. I'm glad she left when she did. And at number 7, a bug was named after her. Listen, I know this one's out there and it's really not even a secret or something you try to hide. I just thought it was fun, so I'm putting it in. I wish the video was titled Top 10 Madonna Facts because this lady is interesting, alright? Sue me. But anyways, in 2006, scientists named a species of microscopic water-dwelling organisms, which is most commonly known as the water bear, after Madonna. The water bear's scientific name is, and bear with me, get it? Echinyscus madonnae. Don't quote me on that. It's also called a tardigrade, which is much easier. Although I'm sure it's because the researchers just loved Madonna's music, naming a bug after her is quite fitting, and I'd be proud to share a name with the water bear because it's basically invincible. Living for upwards of 120 years without food or water while withstanding harsh environmental conditions, these bugs are absolute tanks. For someone as resilient as Madonna, I'm sure she has some pride for her little bug, as both of them have managed to remain strong and consistent throughout their lives. Although it is weird that a water bug born on the same day as Madonna will outlive her by quite a few decades. Coming in at number 6, she kissed Drake at Coachella and it was so awkward. Okay, this one definitely isn't a secret considering how extensive the media coverage was, but I'm struggling here, so give me a break. At Coachella in 2015, Madonna appeared during a Drake performance where she danced around him while he was sitting in a chair. Then she went right up to him and basically stuck her tongue down his throat on stage for all to see. The shocked look on Drake's face afterwards definitely wasn't pleasant, and the non-consensuality of it all was definitely an extremely hot topic. Coming in at number 5, Madonna reminded Beyonce and JayZ that she is the master. Again, also not a secret because people ran with it, but Madonna has posted a Photoshop picture of JayZ and Beyonce gazing at photos of Madonna's album. She captioned it, quote, "learning from the master." People were pissed that a white woman used the term master to show her superiority over two black individuals. In response, Madonna didn't delete the post, but she did edit the word master out of it so it just said learning instead. I guess that works too. Coming in at number 4, she didn't actually move to New York City with only $35. Okay, so this one may be a bit disputed, but there may not be tons of truth to the infamous up-and-coming Madonna story. The legend is that Madonna left her small rural town where she lived with her 5 other siblings and traveled to one of the most expensive cities in the world, New York. Apparently, she also only had $35 in her pocket and used that money to claw her way up to fame. It is a true rags to riches story about using pure willpower and drive to become one of the greatest stars of all time. But it may not even be true. In fact, Madonna's own brother disputes this story. He stated that, in fact, she had a few $100s in her pocket given to her by family to help her start out, and she had some connections and contracts underway to immediately start as a backup dancer once she landed in the city. While it's still an extremely impressive feat to go from pure normalcy with little money to just how big Madonna is, the story of her only having $35 may be a case of broken telephone, and people deliberately stretching the truth to make it seem even more impossible than it already was. Coming in at number 3, Madonna doesn't like being a material girl. One little known fact about Madonna is that she has remarked that she regrets ever recording the track that would become her moniker, Material Girl. It is one of her most famous songs and became the nickname that she is most often represented by. Similarly, she also doesn't feel like she wants to be associated with a song like a Virgin either. Quote, "I like them both because they were iconic and provocative at the time, but also they're so unlike me. I am not a materialistic person, and I certainly wasn't a virgin. And by the way, how can you be like a virgin? I like the play on words. I thought they were clever. They're so geeky, they're cool." She also said that she never expected Material Girl to become as big of a hit as it was. Quote, "I've never been a good judge of what things are going to be huge or not. I'm resourceful, and if I ended up in a log cabin in the middle of the forest, that would work too. These things are not mandatory for my happiness. That's what I meant by I'm not a materialistic person." Coming in at number 2, Madonna and Prince wanted to make a musical together. In a 1989 interview with Madonna, she was asked who her musical aspirations are, and she named Prince as a vocalist that she admired. She then discussed her collaboration called Love Song. Quote, "We've been friends for years and admire each other's work, so we'd always talked about getting together to write. And in fact, there was a moment last year where we were possibly going to write a musical together. I went to a studio in Minnesota and worked on some stuff just to get a feel of what it would be like to collaborate." She then stated that her and Prince had a lot of difficulty creating a completed track. After she worked with him consistently for a few days, she left the studio. She no longer had any interest in writing a musical with him. Then, a while later, Prince approached Madonna with a demo that she enjoyed, but they ended up having to write the full track together long distance because Prince lived in Minneapolis and Madonna hated Minneapolis. The track, Love Song, did not chart the Billboard Hot 100. And finally at number 1, Madonna regrets posing naked for her book. While this article was posted quite a few years ago when Madonna was 49 years old, and she's 63 now, Madonna has stated that she seriously regrets posing naked so often in her youth. In her 1992 book, Sex, she believes that the reception of it was less about the beauty of the female form and expressing sexuality, and more so about how people branded her as an exhibitionist. She admitted that, at one point, she was much less adventurous, branding herself as prude. Quote, "I really was not getting up to much. I don't think I was as naughty as I could have been. I was quite straight. I was a geek when I was young. I did not really do much that was interesting." I think from what I got from this interview, it was less about the actual posing naked that she regrets, but more so about the public's reception about the book. It branded her as loose rather than expressing beauty through art. And number 10, Like a Prayer video. Madonna is no stranger when it comes to controversy, as over the course of her long career, she has frequently pushed boundaries just to stay afloat. One of the biggest scandals involving Madonna is when the singer released her video for her song Like a Prayer back in 1989. Now, Like a Prayer was initially designed to push people's buttons. As Madonna witnesses a crime happen to a white woman by a group of white men, a black man would later intervene to help the woman, but instead he would be arrested for the crime. While Madonna hides in a church, she debates about whether she should come forward as a witness. Later, a statue of a saint in the church resembling the man arrested would come to life, and Madonna would kiss the saint and would begin dancing with the gospel choir in a field of burning crosses before eventually going to the police station to declare the man's innocence. At the time of the music video's release, religious groups were not happy, and Pepsi, who Madonna was actually a spokeswoman for at the time, would drop her from their ads. Hey Peaches, are you enjoying this video so far? If so, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And number 9, wardrobe malfunction at the VMAs. At the very first MTV Video Music Awards in 1984, Madonna's stiletto slipped right off her foot during her performance of her song Like a Virgin. Instead of trying to fix it and put it back on, she turned the incident into a horror show. The singer would flip up her dress, and although the malfunction was accidental, her management team was convinced that the bride's splashing of flesh would spark enough outrage to ensure she would never work again. While she was trying to smooth the move, like dive for the shoe and make it look like it was choreographed, it definitely backfired when her dress malfunctioned and she had a slip up. While many people were concerned Madonna's career was over before she even started her career, she would continue on, and with it came some more red flags, and we couldn't ignore them. And number 8, the coffee table book. If you were in need of a coffee table book back in 1992, then Madonna's book was probably the excellent option for you. Madonna would work with fashion photographer Steven Meisel to produce a pretty controversial book filled with some pretty controversial photos that were shot in various locations such as the Chelsea Hotel. Retailing for around the time at $49.95, the spiral-bound 128-page book featuring Madonna's body and her views on intimacy would have the Vatican urging for its followers to boycott the book, and many bookstores would only put it on display behind the cash register and would only sell to customers who were the age of 18. Years later, her book has become a collector's item that has fetched hundreds of dollars on the resale market. Now, Madonna's book still remains one of the biggest pop culture statements, and it still comes off with a lot of controversy as people still want to know what was going through her head that led her to release it. And number 7, Justify My Love gets booted from MTV. If YouTube existed when Madonna released Justify My Love in 1990, the extremely NSFW music video would have gone viral in minutes, if not seconds. However, because Madonna chose to release such a controversial music video back in the 1990s, it would cause MTV to label the video as unfit for television. The video would then be released as the first ever single VHS format, and it would sell for just under $10. The video would soon become the most top-selling video of all time. The 5-minute video would feature a handful of fantasies and controversial themes, and when ABC Nightlife interviewed Madonna about the controversy, she said she knew the video didn't fit MTV guidelines, but she thought the executives would just bend the rules for her. And number 6, the 20-minute rant on the late night show with David Letterman. Before Madonna became who she is today, she had an iconic potty mouth appearance on the late night show with David Letterman back in 1994. The superstar wandered onto the set looking like a love child and greeted David by calling him the man who has his finger on the pulse of total strangers. Madonna would then go on to swear in the interview, and it would quickly turn inappropriate when Letterman would go yell, "Go kiss a guy" in the audience. It was clear that the two had some beef prior to the interview, and before the show, Madonna had actually gifted him a pair of her undergarments. And during the interview, she continually asked him to give them a sniff, which was pretty disturbing. The interview was extremely bizarre, and before leaving, she would casually turn to David and say, "Incidentally, you are a sick F." Madonna managed to make him feel really uncomfortable, and her 20-minute long rant was hardly PG at all. And number 5, kisses Brittany and Christina at the VMAs. 19 years after Madonna's iconic performance of Like a Virgin at the VMAs, she would take the stage again in 2003, but this time there were 3 brides joining Madonna for a rendition
of the track, Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera. Both superstars were trying to break out of their teen idol boxes by proving how they weren't so innocent as they appeared. Madonna, on the other hand, would keep up her tradition of shocking everyone at the VMAs when she decided to help Britney and Christina break their innocent looks. Madonna would go on to give them both the kiss, but made sure to give Britney one steamy one. While Madonna and Britney's kiss received a lot of media attention that they no doubt hoped for, Christina and Madonna's kiss was completely ignored, mainly because when it took place on the cameras, they quickly cut to Justin Timberlake to capture his awkward reaction. Years later, Christina would say the whole thing was just weird. At 4, mounts herself on a cross. Madonna can't seem to get away from using religious imagery during her concerts and music videos, and you think because the star has received so much backlash over the years that she would just stop and leave it alone. During her Confessions tour in 2006, Madonna took her already criticized religious symbolism to the next level when she performed on a cross while singing live to Tell Additionally. As expected, Madonna's performance would draw huge backlash from religious leaders. Later, she would come out to try to apologize for her actions by saying, "My confession follows and takes place on a crucifix that I ultimately come down from. This is not a mocking of the church." However, this was definitely clear she was mocking the church because she continues to do controversial things to religious imagery, and it just isn't right. 3. Kisses Drake at Coachella. Madonna clearly has a thing for making out with fellow performers on stage, even if that performer is not even half her age. When Madonna chose to live her best life and decided to make out with Drake during their Coachella performance, Drake did not appear happy about Madonna's prolonged smooch on stage, and his overall reaction to the kiss has gone down in our brains as such a hilarious moment. Drake would later head to his Instagram to clarify his reaction by saying, "Don't misinterpret my shock. I got to make out with Queen Madonna and I feel 100% about that forever. Thank you, Madonna." However, his sour face after the encounter says otherwise, and he definitely did not enjoy that kiss whatsoever. And number 2, makes headlines in Puerto Rico. On October 26, 1993, Madonna would soon make headlines after she performed in Puerto Rico and caused a huge stir among the people living there. While performing, Madonna would do the unthinkable, and she decided to take the Puerto Rican flag and rub it in between her legs in front of 26,000 fans. Soon after, protest and criticism against the star would start to rise due to her disrespectful behavior, and then the Puerto Rican House Representatives would then make the decision to charge Madonna with desecration of the flag and would pass a resolution to condemn her. I don't really know what was going through Madonna's head at the time for her even to think this was a good idea, but it was seriously disturbing. So how do you feel about this situation? And let me know in the comments below. And number 1 today, we have claimed she's the master. Madonna has proven to all of us that she's a pro when it comes to Photoshop. When Madonna took it upon herself to Photoshop herself into Beyonce's and JayZ's video to replace the art on the walls with her album cover, she would caption the photo at the time as learning from the master, which pretty much said that JayZ and Beyonce were learning from her because she was the master. Now, she was definitely trying to poke fun about her 4 decades in the industry. However, when the post met some major controversy, Madonna would then have a change of heart, and then she would delete the word master and would just have learning lol. But she still got the message she was trying to say across, but I wouldn't exactly say Madonna was the master they were learning from, because it's more like she's learning from them at this point.
1970s. Taken from photos in her yearbook, it appears that Madonna went through high school with thinly plucked eyebrows and natural looking makeup. Her hair is also its natural color, which was a dirty blonde kind of brunette. In 1978, she took some acting headshots where she was again sporting minimal makeup yet with crimped hair. Her eyes have always been Betty Davis-esque, where they are striking and sharp. Then, as Madonna's fame starts to soar, her style begins pivoting from natural and relatively minimal to an edgier, more punky look. In 1979, she chopped her hair off and sported a slick pixie cut. Now living in Manhattan, she rocked heavy lipstick and artfully applied shadows to enunciate her eyes. Once we entered the 1980s, Madonna has become a mega superstar. She introduced the world to the Manhattan club scene. She released her self-titled debut album in this decade and began cultivating an edgy, fun aesthetic. She over-glamorized with poppy colors in her makeup and clothing. She was quintessential 80s. At this point, she also hasn't gotten any plastic surgery done because she's so young. I doubt she would really feel the need to, especially because of how naturally beautiful she is. She became known for her bright red lipstick and smoky eye, which is now considered a classic look in part due to Madonna's consistent use of it. In 1985, she also did the infamous Like a Virgin and would embody that role for quite some time. She became the soiled virgin during this era, a woman in a wedding dress with blood pouring out of her abdomen. Her looks during the 80s are more synonymous with how people view Madonna as a whole during her height. Her look was purely DIY and almost eclectic, with each individual accessory being a loud statement piece on its own. That being said, Madonna did have some cosmetic surgery during this time, but it was done to her teeth. She got a few crowns in her teeth and evened them out to seem more appealing. As we enter more into the 1990s and Madonna exits the youth and natural beauty she had been so accustomed to, we start to see much less of a fashion shift and much more of a physical form shift. She sticks to her bold lipstick and smoky eye and often chooses eclectic outfits over something more traditional. But we also start to notice lip fillers, and her face begins to shift in a way that seems like an attempt to fight the natural progress of age. In the late 90s too, it became apparent that Madonna started on a Botox regime to keep her cheeks full and prevent sagging. Although none of this is confirmed, it's hard not to see. When she smiles, there's very little expression lines as opposed to her younger self, who showcases her smile with lines on the sides of her lips. Her eyes also look more frozen and less expressive. As we enter into the 2000s, we see both a massive style shift and a physical form shift as well. Her style becomes much more classic. She begins wearing dark, sleek outfits and minimal makeup. It almost appears to be an ode to her younger self as she transitions into a more middle-aged woman and away from her youthful exuberance in the 80s fashion and club scene. In 2003 specifically, it also looks like she got her first facelift. This is different from the usual Botox in the sense that it's not really injections. Rather, Madonna would have had surgically, physically gotten her face lifted. The surgery is super painful and hard to do, but now Madonna's entire look has changed, with not a wrinkle on her forehead and wrinkles practically gone everywhere else. The widening of the temple to move back her hairline, coupled with wrinkling at the ears, point to a scar along her hairline. The public is starting to catch on now too, as now there's tons of tabloids about Madonna's face and how she looks so different from how she looked before. We see an eyelid surgery that got rid of the sagging on her eye folds and reduced puffiness under her eyes. Also during this time, we see the first non-subtle facial surgery. Her cheeks are noticeably much more pronounced in a way that only a cheek implant could produce. Her cheek hollows are also very pronounced. Because Madonna has always been extremely lean and muscular, it would make sense that she would attempt to get implants, seeing as those who have much leaner frames tend to age faster because there's less fat behind the skin, so it appears less full. As time goes on though, sadly her face becomes more and more full. It starts to change the features that people see most. Before, Madonna's eyes were the star of the show. Her eyes are stunning. But as the fillers and fat transplants become more common, we start to see that her cheeks and her skin become more and more attention grabbing. It happens a lot with dermal fillers. If people continue to use dermal fillers, as they get older they just put more on top of the old fillers, and that can lead to a larger looking face. In the 2010s we see a lot more of the same stuff. Although she's aged 10 years, you barely see it as she continues with the dermals and the facelifts. That being said, considering she's in her 50s around this time, I think she looks really good. Obviously, and here's a little rant incoming, we need to take into account that it is a surgically enhanced look, and no person at this age should expect to look like this without modifying their body in some way. I don't really want to take the angle of shaming someone for getting surgery to enhance how they look, because we've all got insecurities, and I can't imagine being in a spotlight where the way you look is such a large aspect of your career and how you're perceived by millions of people. But at the same time, we also want to tell normal people that this look is not possible naturally. It is not genetics. Of course she looks great, but don't hate yourself if you don't look like her. Anyway, sorry about that, but I do feel like being transparent on this angle here is a bit necessary to continue the video as ethically as possible. Now, in 2019, we start to see Madonna's appearance make headlines again. This time for her butt. Getting a Brazilian butt lift, Madonna is now sporting a much more voluptuous back end. Like I said, her natural figure is extremely lean and athletic, so it would be near impossible for her to attain a larger butt that is more popular these days. But Madonna definitely started to sport the stereotypical BBL look that we see on people like Kim Kardashian and Kylie Jenner. She's got very thin thighs and a perfectly rounded front figure in her thighs with no hip dips in sight. Almost every woman has natural hip dips, so it becomes really obvious when someone has a big butt and no dips, where the muscle in the thigh supports the butt. Madonna definitely went for a more trendy look this time, which honestly I think is closer to her brand. As the decades progress, we see her style become extremely trendy. She embodies each decade that she dominates with music. But as her music production slows, she continues to follow the trends of the decade, with a BBL kind of personifying this. And now in the current decade of the 2020s, we see a lot more fat transfers to her face from other parts of her body. Her face is getting a lot puffier, which I guess is a way to attain a fuller looking face, which is something she battles, as her genetics don't hold fat in a way that it would for other people who gain weight easier. It seems she also updated her cheek implants because her cheeks have become more pronounced than ever, but this time without the accompanying hollowness below her cheeks. With the combination of a fat transplant and cheek implants, her face looks extremely full and almost unnaturally youthful. She starts to look a bit otherworldly because after a certain point, and I mean she's in her 60s now, you can't really fight age and time. Her lips have also become a lot more exaggerated around this time, with a much more noticeable lip filler dominating her face. And now in early April 2022, Madonna posted a TikTok that shocked fans and viewers. The video's weird. It's just her getting close to the camera and then far away from the camera. But it's also weird in the way that her face looks insanely different. In my personal opinion, it looked like she took the video hot off the presses of the surgery table. Her face looks puffy, but in a swollen way, and likely we'll see her look much more normal as the swelling reduces in the future. Her eyes look almost completely closed and swollen, so it looks like she got more Botox on her forehead and cheeks, which would puff up the cheeks and make her eyes look really small. Jennifer Coolidge, one of my favorite actors and comedians, has this look as well due to consistent Botox and cheek implants. A lot of fans are a little sad about Madonna's constantly changing look. One person commented on the TikTok, quote, "I've loved Madonna since I was little. Huge fan, love her, but this is a hard pass. What has she done to herself?" I think it's a hard line to tread as someone gets older. I can't imagine how dissociative one must feel to continue shifting their face to seemingly desperately reverse aging. After some time, and we're starting to see it much more now, it just looks unnatural. She's already heavily photoshops her photos on social media, and I think it all obviously points to a very intense self-esteem issue. I just hope she finds the help she needs and maybe finds the courage to embrace her natural beauty a bit more.